What's happening, everybody? Justin, Bridgewater's Finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter. If I look a little tired, that's because I am. But this is Divisional Week, NFL Playoffs 2013, divisional games in the AFC and the NFC. You know the deal from last week. I was 8-4 with my picks last week, 3-1 straight up, 3-1 against the spread, 2-2 over/under. Let's get to the division round games. So we'll start again in the AFC. We're going to start with the 2 versus 3 game, which is the Houston Texans, now 13-4 with their win against Cincinnati last week, traveling to Gillette Stadium to play the New England Patriots. The line in this game is New England minus 9.5, favored at home. The over-under sits at 47.5. Now, in terms of playing at home, New England was a very good home team this year. They were 6-2, outscoring opponents 278 to 177 in those 8 games. That is an average clip of 35 points a game for New England versus just 22 allowed. However, if you look at Houston on the road, Houston record-wise was also very good on the road. They matched Cincinnati's road record, which I mentioned in the last video, of 6 wins and 2 losses on the road. Scoring was quite a bit closer, though. It was 182 to 166 in those games. Head-to-head matchups, New England, of course, demolished Houston 42-14 on December the 10th. The Pats have also won 3 of their last 4 matchups head-to-head, but those 4 matchups date all the way back to 2003. Both teams on the season played 11 games against common opponents, and both teams were 10-1. New England's only loss coming against Baltimore, and Houston's only loss coming against Indianapolis. New England holds common wins over Tennessee, 2 over Buffalo, Denver, 2 over the New York Jets, Indy, 2 over Miami, and Jacksonville. Houston holds wins over common opponents, 2 over Tennessee, 2 over Jacksonville, Baltimore, Buffalo, Denver, New York Jets, Indy, and Miami. In those 11 common games, New England put up 395 points versus just 225 scored against. In the common games for Houston, they also put up 335 points, so again, a good scoring clip for Houston, but only gave up 187, so Houston's defense definitely showing up against those common opponents. Overall scoring on the season was really an edge for New England all the way across the board, one of the best offenses in football. Overall on the season, I can see it being about, if you just look at overall scoring trends, I would say maybe about 28-24 New England, somewhere in there, so it's a margin of more than a field goal. If you take a look at home versus away, the margin gets a little bit bigger. It's looking maybe about 28-23, so then New England, again, sort of pulling away a little bit more. As far as momentum goes in the last 5 games, it's a big gap for New England. We're talking 28-17 because, again, Houston's scoring late in the season was just not very high. And, well, New England really stayed pretty consistent with their scoring all through the season. X factors. The Patriots passing penchant. Brady per game is usually good for about 25 completions. Good to attempt between 35 to 40 passes a game, but he's usually good to complete 25 of them. Over 300 yards every game. 2 touchdowns is pretty well a lock. He's only going to throw about half an interception per game, so you really can't bet on getting a Brady interception. And he's got 5 receivers who caught 40 or more balls this year, so he really does spread that offense out. One of the few teams in the league that's really, really good at spreading out the pass offense between multiple dangerous receivers. The second X factor, can New England stop Arian Foster again? One of the big reasons that New England won that game earlier this year is they limited Arian Foster to 46 rushing yards on 15 rush attempts. Now, he did get into the end zone, but when you look at Foster's averages against the rest of the league, they're kind of insane. Against his other teams this year, he's averaged 22 touches, which is more than he had in the New England game, 92 yards, which is a lot more than he had in the New England game, and he still did get that touchdown, but he's averaged a touchdown a game, and went for 140 yards on 32 carries and a score against Cincinnati last week. So the Patriots need to worry that Foster might be heating back up here. And you know what? J.J. Watt, he's the most disruptive and game-changing defensive player on either side, on either team in this game, quite possibly in the whole league. He was ineffective against New England in Week 14. He only had 4 tackles. He didn't record a sack. He didn't defend a pass. He did have a forced fumble, but he's going to have to do more than that for Houston this week if Houston wants to move on and, in the opinion of many, upset New England in New England's home barn. How do I think the game's going to go? We mentioned that number there of 47.5. I'm going to bet the over on it. I think it's a more dangerous play because Houston has only gone over in 3 of their last 10, but the Pats have gone over in 7 of their last 10, and the last 4 head-to-head meetings between these two teams have all gone over, including that game earlier this year where the number was 50.5. That game went over. We're being given 3 points here versus that one. I'm pretty confident that it's going to go over, so I would take the game to go over 47.5 points. In terms of a final score, I think when I look at everything here, I don't think Houston's defense is going to be able to do enough to stop the Patriots. I think the Patriots are going to score their points. I think they're going to score their points early. Houston's going to be forced to play catch-up. And I think if you're forced Houston to play catch-up, keeping the ball in Matt Schaub's hands to try to do something with the 1 or 2 dangerous receivers he has, then New England is just going to tear this game apart. I'm looking at New England 34, Houston 24. So if you look at that line, New England minus 9.5. Bet New England minus 9.5 on the line. It's a lot of points, but every single one of Houston's losses this year has come by at least 10 points, and I expect that trend to continue. Again, of course, that includes that loss at New England earlier this season. So straight up, I like the New England Patriots to move on to the AFC Championship game. On the line, I like New England minus 9.5, and on the over-under, I like over 47.5 points. AFC 1v4, the Baltimore Ravens traveling to Mile High Stadium to take on the Denver Broncos. The line in this game is Denver minus 9.5, so the same line that was in the New England-Houston game. Over-under number here for the total is 46. Denver at home, again, phenomenal year at home. 7-1 Denver is at home on a 6-game home winning streak. 7-1, 260 points scored versus just 131 allowed. That is a clip of 33-16. Baltimore on the road, really only an average team, and this falls back not only on Baltimore's skill level, but Baltimore's team philosophy. And really, they were only a 50-50 team on the road here. They were 4-4 this year. They were actually outscored on the road, 144-165. So that's a clip of about 18 for 21 against in their games on average on the road this year. Head-to-head matchups, Denver doubled them up, of course, December the 16th, 34-17. And really, in their histories with each other, they've kind of been back and forth. It'll go Denver, Baltimore, Baltimore, Denver, Denver, Baltimore, Denver, Baltimore. So it's hard to pick up trends here when neither team can go on longer than a 2-game winning streak, you know what I mean? Common opponents. They each played 11 games this year against common opponents. Denver in those games was 9-2. Denver holds wins over Pittsburgh, 2 over Oakland, 2 over San Diego, Cincinnati, 2 over Kansas City, and Cleveland. Their only 2 losses coming against high-level competition, Houston and New England. Baltimore's common opponents. They were 8-3 in those 11 games, holding wins over Pittsburgh, Oakland, New England, San Diego, Cincinnati, Kansas City, and 2 over Cleveland. Their 3 losses coming against Pittsburgh, Houston, and Cincinnati. Now in the common games, Denver outscored their opponents 325-194. Phenomenal numbers. Like this, the offense was just really just clicking all season. I mean, they were fantastic. And again, only giving up 194 points in those 11 games. Pretty good numbers on the defensive side of the ball. Baltimore in those common games outscored their opponents 266-212. So obviously no slouches there. It's about 5 points a game almost. And if you take a look at scoring trends throughout the whole season, basically everything you look at is a significant advantage towards Denver. Overall scoring on the season, we're looking about 26-22 Denver, which is the same gap and close to the numbers that we said in New England, Houston. I think these two games are going to be very similar in that regard. Home versus away, the gap gets much wider. We're looking at 27-17. We're looking at a two-possession game there for Denver because Denver just plays so well at home and Baltimore just plays so pedestrian and so average on the road. And taking a look at last five for terms of momentum, it doesn't get much better for Baltimore, we'll put it that way. 28-19 is the difference there for the Broncos. X factors, as I already mentioned them. Baltimore, road weariers rather than road warriors. The Ravens, traditionally an average road team, and again, as we said, they've been outscored by an average of a field goal in their games on the road this year. So, it's something to worry about. It really is. And Denver dominance in the Mile High City. And I think ultimately that's what the game will come down to, is the fact that it's being played in Denver. If this is a game being played in Baltimore, maybe it's a different story. Again, I haven't crunched the numbers on that, so I can't say for sure, but it might be a different story. Denver, 6-game home winning streak, like I said. Every win at home has been by at least 7 points. And in the last 2 home games, they've only allowed 1 touchdown. So that's pretty good. And what I really love about looking at these two teams is I look at Denver is what Baltimore was during Baltimore's heyday, but with a much better offense. You know what I mean? Like, they're a top 5 ranked, high tackle, run-stuffing defense, which is exactly what Baltimore was. Baltimore was a suffocating run-stuffing and pressure defense during their heyday, but they also score 30 points a game. Denver may very well be the most complete team in football right now. So how do I think the game's going to go? Well, I think if you're betting the over-under here, I think it's fairly safe to bet the over. 46 is a relatively low number to shoot for to bet the over. The earlier meeting this year went over 48 points. Denver only had 3 unders all year. They had under 47 at Oakland, which is against a team that does not have a very good offense. Under 41.5 in something of a fluke game against Kansas City, where I think the final score there was like 17-6 or something. I don't know. Denver took an extended vacation or something, and they went under at New Orleans, but the number was 55. So it's a much bigger number. So I really think betting the over here is a safe play to go over 46 points. That's what I'm going to be doing. On the line again was Denver minus 9.5. And I've bounced around on the line on this one because I wanted to give Baltimore enough credit to say that they would cover that spread. Kind of the same way I wanted to give Houston enough credit to say that they would cover their spread. Ultimately, I think this has the makings to become a possible blowout. I'm going to say Denver 31, Baltimore 20, which means if you're betting the line, bet Denver minus 9.5. It's a lot of points, but I also looked at the stats here. Denver is 5-3 at home and 8-4 in conference against the spread this year. So I'm going to stick with betting with Denver, and take Denver minus 9.5 on the line. Obviously, I like Denver straight up to win the game. Denver minus 9.5 against the spread, and over 46 points.